Hello there, Homo sapiens. This is Atilla Yeşilada, broadcasting for Real Turkey Channel. Today we're going to talk about Turkey's Kurds. Well, if you know anything about Turkey, you know that the ethnic Turkish majority and the ethnic Turkish minority had their differences, to put it extremely mildly. It's difficult to be a minority in every country, but doubly so in Turkey. Nevertheless, today I'm not going to address discrimination against Kurds or the perception among them that they are treated as a second-class citizen, or PKK, which is truly a terror organization pretending to be a revolutionary movement for Kurdish liberation, or Kurds' plight in terms of the difficulties they experience in the regions where they inhabit. However, I'm going to talk about Turkey's elections and how Kurds are truly the swing vote. So let's get started. This video is titled, "The Fate of Elections Will Be Determined by the Kurdish Vote." By the way, this is Mesele Ekonomi, the premier Turkish economy channel. They lent me their studios once again. I'm very grateful to them. They're also doing the production. So, a hurrah goes up to them. And if you speak Turkish, do watch Mesele Ekonomi kanal. Going back to Kurds, the background. Kurds are a very unlucky nation. They live in 4 countries, in all of which they are minorities. And these are not nice countries. I suppose it's difficult to be a minority even in Belgium, I don't know, Texas, or Japan. But Kurds live in Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey, none of which are known to treat any of their citizens fairly or humanely. The largest portion of Kurds, maybe 40%, live in Turkey. Half of them live in what we call the east and southeast regions of Turkey, so bordering Iran, Iraq, and partially Syria. The rest of them have spread all over Turkey. In fact, it's estimated that the biggest Kurdish city in the world is Istanbul, with over 2 million Kurds. As I've said, Kurds and Turks, at a personal level, I think largely at the social level, they get along fine. There is not that much social discrimination, but official discrimination has been rampant and at many times brutal, inhuman. The problem is that the Turkish state thinks that Kurds want a separate nation. They are separatists, that, by definition, if you're a Kurd, you are an enemy of the Turkish Republic and Turkish unity. This is why they have been kept under strict surveillance. The emergence of PKK in 1980s didn't help. PKK might have started as a liberation movement, but it's a professional terror organization that sells its services to the highest bidder and plays a crucial role in the heroin trade between Afghanistan and Europe. But anyhow, as it stands, for many Turks who are not extremely politically woke, the phrase Kurdish rights or Kurdish equality immediately brings to imagination PKK. So there is this antagonism towards solving the Kurdish problem. Mr. Erdogan ought to be given credit for honestly trying to start a peace process with Kurds, but for 2 reasons it didn't work out. First, PKK obviously provoked events that ended the peace talks. Secondly, Mr. Erdogan realized that the Turkish majority, or at least his constituency, wasn't ready to swallow equality for Kurds. Since then, Kurds, their main political party, HDP, Halkların Demokrasi Partisi, People's Democracy Party, have been subject to the severest of persecutions. It's very difficult to be a Kurd if you live in the Kurdish regions, simply because you are under constant police, gendarmerie, surveillance, and the courts are very brutal to criminalize the slightest offense as terrorism. In other cities, they are better off, but unfortunately, they are largely shunned in state jobs and state tenders. HDP won 65 municipalities in 2019. Today, they only have 5. The rest have been turned over to AKP-appointed administrators. The spiritual leader of the Kurdish movement, well, there are 2. PKK leader Öcalan, who is in prison and who shall rot there forever. because he's a murderer. But the new spiritual leader, who is a man of peace, Mr. Selahattin Demirtas, has been kept in prison despite orders to the contrary by European Court of Human Rights on charges of terrorism. But that doesn't stop him from expressing his opinion, and he guides the Kurdish vote. Kurds, are sick of this treatment, and they vote very heavily, and they are going to be the determining factor in the 2023 elections. Remember, we're going to have both the parliamentary and the presidential election at the same date. The breakdown of votes as they stand right now in the parliamentary election is that the AKP-MHP governing bloc has roughly 40% of the vote. The mainstream opposition, non-Kurdish opposition parties have roughly 50%, and the Kurdish HDP commands 10% of the vote. So you understand why is it crucial to have a legislative majority in the parliament. Either side, AKP, MHP, or the opposition, must draft the support of HDP. In that sense, how many seats HDP gains and which way HDP will swing in the next parliament is crucial. In the presidential elections, it's pretty much the same situation. There, Erdogan still has a chance to win. I would say it's no more than 33%. Presidential elections will probably go to a runoff, where Erdogan will race against a candidate nominated by the main opposition alliance, now called Table of Six. That person is very likely to be Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the leader of CHP. In the first round, the Kurds, the HDP, and the left-wing alliance around it will nominate a candidate, but that person, he or she, really doesn't stand a chance in terms of making it to the second round. So the Kurdish votes will be idle, waiting for the right leader to elect. Essentially, they will never vote for Erdogan. Erdogan has done them so much harm that they're not going to vote for Erdogan, but they can simply stay at home. And in that case, Erdogan's chances of winning the second round is much bigger compared to a scenario where, having seen their candidate defeated in the first round, Kurdish voters go to the polls in the second round and vote for Erdogan's opponent. It is more likely that they will choose to vote for the opposition candidate in the second round if the candidate is Kılıçdaroğlu or Istanbul's popular mayor, CHP mayor again, Ekrem İmamoğlu. It's less likely if the candidate is, one of the names still in the running, such as Mansur Yavaş, the mayor of Ankara from CHP, or Mrs. Akşener, chairwoman of İYİP, even though she said she's not going to run. So, to summarize it, Kurds will decide which side, is it AKP or MHP or the main opposition alliance, can pass legislation in the next parliament. In terms of the presidential elections, their candidate will be defeated, but for the opposition to pick a candidate that is at least flexible in terms of Kurdish problem, solving the Kurdish problems, is going to be a determining factor in terms of his chances of winning. Where do we go from here? Let's assume the best case scenario from the Kurdish perspective. That is, the Kurdish party HDP is the swing vote in the parliament, and they helped the main opposition party to elect its candidate, say Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, to presidency. Are they going to get any relief? To some extent, yes. Kurdish demands can be summarized in three items. A, end the state's antagonism to anyone who is Kurdish, thinking that we are all terrorists. B, we want, of course, economic equality. That's more investment into our regions, more budgetary spending, and opportunity in education, in jobs, in everything like that. 3, they want recognition as an ethnic group, as a nationality within the rubric of what we call Turkey. And some of them do demand a regional autonomy, not necessarily secession, but more power to regional assemblies, governors, etc., etc. I think in terms of ending the pressure on them by the police, the gendarmerie, the courts, etc., that will end if Kılıçdaroğlu and the opposition come to power. That's understood. In terms of economic rights, it is going to get better, but only to a certain extent, simply because the prejudice against Kurds, even in the business community and the bureaucracy, is becoming entrenched. In terms of political rights, that's, a new constitution that officially recognizes that Kurds are part of the Turkish Republic and they have undeniable equal rights, or that they have regional autonomy, at least more power to regional assemblies, etc. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen under Kılıçdaroğlu, Erdogan, or any other president. Why? Simply because the Turkish majority is not ready to end this conflict. And as long as PKK is seen as a threat in Iraq and now in the midst of the Syrian Kurdish political entity, PYD-YPG, unfortunately, the Turkish majority is going to be extremely difficult to convince that to the solutions of the Kurdish problem. You may realize, if you follow Turkey, I didn't talk about the Supreme Court case, which may result in the closure, that is, banning of HDP from politics, simply because it's not a real issue. HDP and its predecessors have been shut down maybe like 10 times, going back to 1980s. And, they're like the phoenix bird. They know how to be reborn from their ashes. HDP has a side party on the sidelines to be reactivated. If they are not allowed to contest the upcoming election with any party, they will simply nominate independent candidates in the districts where they have majority. They'll still make it to the parliament. This has been another video of Real Turkey channel. I want to thank you for your continued support and for your excellent comments. If you like it, push the like button or subscribe to Real Turkey channel. Once again, my gratitude to Mesele Ekonomi for sharing their studios with me. Stay well. Bye-bye.